position?
It's great.
Yeah?
It's great.
I
Keeping
think
me
it's
busy.
a great fit.
Meeting a lot of people.
I was so thrilled to hear that
Yeah.
you took over the position at FreedomWorks.
That's
It's
great.
a great fit.
It's great. And being a black conservative, there are a lot of black conservatives that are out there who were afraid to be vocal about what they really believe and their core values and where they stood politically. And with the organization, with FreedomWorks and with Empower.org, which is really a community for black conservatives to meet, to network, to get information, but it's also a support system. So I get a lot of feedback from people who are now coming out of the closet, so to speak, because they're not afraid and they feel like they have backup.
How are they, you found a lot of black conservatives getting more involved?
I do,
Activism?
especially young black conservatives, and I'm contacted all the time on social media, Twitter, Facebook, emails, and people want to get involved. They want to get engaged, and that's great. I was on, Sean Hannity did a 1-hour special, in fact it's airing today, which is pretty funny, with an audience of black conservatives. And I got maybe about a third of the audience filled. It was about 25 people from across the country, and they were able to speak their mind and not feel intimidated, which was great. And the program got a lot of positive feedback, and we plan on doing more of them.
Now, are you getting feedback from them on how they're being received as new activists?
Yeah, and what they're doing in their local community. Some of them are business owners, some of them are just family, and they're raising their families. They're hardworking Americans, but they're also doing outreach in their local community and spreading the word. So they're getting more involved and more active, and that's what we want, because we want to communicate that
Community
message.
organizing.
In a good way. In a good way.
Yes. So what are your plans for FreedomWorks? Where are you going now? You know, there's been a front on the immigration. There's been a fight on, I met Matt Kibbe back when they were touring America, talking about the economics and things. What is the next big thing that we're going after now?
Well, we're doing events like we're doing today, Free the People, and we're also doing events in local communities. We're letting people crowdsource, so to speak, when they'll start an event, and we'll come in and speak and teach them our different programs and our outreach initiatives. So that's something that we'll be doing throughout the year.
Okay. And are you targeting anybody specifically or as a whole?
All Americans, but my role, I'm communicating to black communities, black individuals.
Okay.
But to all Americans, because
Right.
the message is liberty, it resonates with everyone. But unfortunately in the black community, there has been a bunch of lies, that's what I call it.
Right.
That blacks are victims and need special treatment, and we have the same black liberal establishment politicians, community activists, the media in the black community, and some black pastors who have the same message over and over. I've been hearing it for years, and it's the same message now.
I know I've noticed here in Utah that the black community has increased since Katrina, and more, and I'm so excited to see the diversity come in. I'm excited, but they come here going, "You're so nice here. What do I do?" You know, and they're
Well,
I'm sure.
That's a good point, because if you're in an urban community, that's all you know.
Yeah.
So whatever your environment is, unless you're able to get out of that environment and seek what's really out there, see the rest of the world, and search other opportunities, you know, to advance in your life. That's all these, you know, unfortunately, that's the way it is. So unless you are that individual who can break out, you're able to do that. And that's why we're in these communities, to tell people what the options are, what the opportunities are. Because there's more out there,
Yeah.
you know, for you to be successful.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody else?
As the token Democrat in the room, I figured I could speak at some point, but it's not really about that. There was a report recently from I think it was the National Committee of the College Republicans or some organization like that, that was trying to sort of figure out what it is where the GOP is struggling with young voters and where they're not, and sort of separate the myths from the realities on that front. And what they found was really interesting. I found it very interesting. Essentially they found, and I'm trying to find the summary now on my phone so I don't mischaracterize it, but basically that young voters actually agree with a lot of the core messages of conservatism, particularly I would say sort of FreedomWorks style conservatism. The idea that we need to shrink government, address the debt, and you know, have freer markets. But that some of the ways in which that message is being sold are not working for young voters, and the young voters have this impression of the GOP as being not necessarily pro-market, but pro-big business. All these things, and those things that you hear.
There are a lot of negative messages associated with conservatives and with GOP. And that's what FreedomWorks is doing. That's what we're countering, because we talk about liberty, we talk about empowerment. Young people, everyone they want jobs, they want to be employed. So we get past all of the labels and just talk about what the facts are. People want to be gainfully employed. You need lower taxes, you need smaller government, less regulations. That is what spurs job growth, that's what spurs our economy. So that's the message that we deliver.
How do you sort of cut through the rhetoric where, when you talk about lower regulation, for instance, I'm somebody who strongly believes that we need a lot more sort of rational. The regulations need to be made more rational. They need to be made probably less and to work better. The ones that we have, liberals tend to characterize GOP wanting to cut down on regulation as, well, you're going to take us back to the 1920s and we'll have child labor and all these things. That's sort of that taking that thing and radicalizing it. How do you cut through that and explain to people that what we want to do isn't across the board, get rid of all regulations are bad, but we need less and we need them to be more focused on working.
We talk about the facts. So let's talk about energy, for example. When you look at the fact that our president, before he was president, said he wanted electricity rates to necessarily skyrocket. So look at your current utility bill, and what does that tell you? You're paying X amount now, and my president wants my utility rates to skyrocket. That makes absolutely no sense, because you're harming hardworking Americans, you're harming families. So in that regard, like, this is one of the things I write about and talk about on a regular basis, is energy. We need cheap, reliable energy. That's the lifeblood of our economy. Who would want to open a manufacturing facility knowing that our president wants electricity rates to skyrocket? That makes no sense. So right now he's using the EPA that is unleashing numerous regulations against the coal industry. And that's leading to job losses in the coal industry. There's a ripple effect, because of those jobs in those communities lead to other jobs. And it's also putting a lot of people on the unemployment line. So that's something that I wrote about in my book, Blacklash, and it's also something I talk about. And that's a pocketbook issue. We talk about common sense issues where people can get it, they understand it, it's not above their head. I don't want higher electricity prices. If I'm on a fixed income, where's that extra money supposed to come from?
My question is kind of riffing off Brendan's, but you speak a lot to the black community. You lived in the black community. I lived in the black community for a couple of years as a missionary in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I spoke to many African Americans, and I got to know them, got to know kind of how their life was, and it was much different than mine. And so when I want to share with them, what I feel are good, liberty-centric, small government concepts, but I don't come from the same background as they do. And so, do you have a shortcut or something that you have found that would enable someone who grew up in a situation like me to connect with someone who grew up in an inner city?
One thing I suggest is people to perhaps partner with local businesses, perhaps that are owned by black individuals who are familiar with the community, familiar with the people. Partner with them to help you communicate that message, and then also they can maybe help you get into the churches, get into the local whatever clubs that are within those areas, and then from there, that's where you have that ripple effect.
So one question, FreedomWorks is with Common Core, fighting Common Core on a big issue. I've been researching Common Core since 2010, so I know quite a bit about it. San Francisco Civil Liberties did testing, Common Core testing on the black community there, and the kids failed. And they're concerned that that Common Core is going to fail the black community big time.
It's going to fail all of them.
It's going to fail all of them, but more so because they're already struggling.
Testing,
it's all testing. It's going to make that group even more more of a struggle
Right.
to succeed.
Sure.
How are you going to focus on that directly?
Oh yeah,
in
we
contact?
have an entire program,
Okay.
commoncorefails.com, and there's a lot of information up there. Whitney Neal is the director of that program, and she's been touring the country educating people about Common Core.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also on Sean Hannity's radio show recently. We had a 3-hour show. I was one of the hosts because he was out.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I hosted the show. We had Whitney on for like 25 minutes
Mm-hmm.
talking about Common Core, and we had a lot of hits on the website because people want to get information about it,
Mm-hmm.
and people just want to know because some people know and some people don't really know all the details
Right.
about it.
Right.
So it's an issue really that people need to pay attention to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was very nice to meet
Great.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone.